The public is being conditioned to watch for missiles. The media, citing kinetic battlefield assessments like those from the Institute for the Study of War, fixates on territorial advances and asset attrition. This is a strategic misdirection. The mathematics of a conventional, peer-to-peer conflict are unsustainable. The true escalation vector bypasses kinetic cost entirely. The real threat is not an explosion. It is silence. Authoritative analysis from strategic bodies like CSIS confirms the primary vulnerability of the Western system is not its military, but its nervous system. The network of undersea fiber optic cables that carry 95% of all global data and financial transactions. Simultaneously, a satellite blinding protocol renders orbital intelligence and GPS navigation inert. This is not about destruction. It is about inducing systemic paralysis. The goal is to create a blind Leviathan, a nation-state with unparalleled military power, suddenly deprived of the data streams that allow it to see, to target, to transact. A blinded system cannot function. It thrashes. High-frequency trading algorithms fail. Automated clearinghouses freeze. This is not a military defeat. It is a forced solvency crisis, triggered by an adversary who understands that the launch-on-warning protocol that truly matters is not nuclear, but financial. The weapon is our own leveraged architecture. The motive is not ideology. It is a balance sheet. For Russia, the kinetic war is a solvency crisis in real time. According to CSIS analysis, the escalating cost and manpower drain of the campaign have metastasized into a severe domestic liability. An unpopular war is a fiscal black hole, a terminal drain on state resources. This is not a geopolitical strategy. It is a mathematical certainty. When the cost of conventional projection exceeds your domestic capacity, you are facing systemic failure. This weakness forces a pivot. A cornered adversary does not surrender. It changes the battlefield. The pivot to asymmetric financial warfare is a launch-on-warning protocol triggered by this internal economic pressure. Why spend billions on a tank offensive that gains meters, as documented by the Institute for the Study of War, when you can achieve strategic dislocation for a fraction of the cost? The objective becomes brutally logical: to externalize your solvency crisis onto your adversary. If you cannot defeat their military, you bankrupt the system that funds it. The target vector shifts from their army to their core financial liabilities. The goal is to trigger a cascading liquidity event in the West, transforming their own leveraged financial architecture into the weapon of their demise. It's a zero-sum game of economic survival, and the first to go insolvent loses everything. The kinetic cost curve has inverted. According to analysts at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, the market dynamics are irrefutable. A $5 million main battle tank can be operationally neutralized by a $500 first-person view drone. This represents a 10,000 to 1 cost imbalance. This is the blueprint for the democratization of violence. The barrier to entry for projecting lethal state-level force has collapsed to a consumer price point. An adversary no longer needs industrial parity. They simply need to exploit the catastrophic leverage of this asymmetry. The objective is not to win a symmetric tank battle, it is to impose unsustainable kinetic costs, transforming a superpower's primary military assets into terminal liabilities. This is not warfare. It is a forced liquidation event executed on the battlefield. The kinetic battlefield is a diversion. The primary theater of operations is not demarcated by trenches, but by systemic fragility. These are the gray zones. According to analysts at RUSI, conventionally pressured adversaries have shifted operations to what are effectively proxy laboratories. Regions selected not for their territory, but for their utility as staging grounds to stress-test Western response protocols at a low kinetic cost. Consider the Greenland crisis, documented by Middle East Monitor. This is not a dispute over sovereignty. It is a live-fire exercise in weaponizing geostrategic dependency. By engineering instability at a critical node for rare earth minerals and U.S. strategic basing, an adversary can beta test supply chain disruption and alliance fracture without firing a single missile. The objective is to map our systemic breaking points. These proxy zones serve as incubators for asymmetric financial instruments. An engineered political crisis in a resource-rich nation can create calculated volatility shocks. According to Société Générale's analysis, there is a direct mathematical relationship between currency market chaos, like the recent dollar-yen dislocation, and risk-off events in U.S. equities. The chaos is manufactured offshore, the solvency crisis is delivered onshore. While assessments from the Institute for the Study of War track troop movements, the more dangerous offensive is the one targeting political cohesion. Fomenting instability in a partner nation like Canada forces a U.S. policy response, which can be weaponized to exacerbate domestic political divides, such as the documented conflict between a Trump-like executive and the Federal Reserve. The gray zone is the launch pad. The American financial system is the target. The goal is not occupation, but a systemic liquidity event, a launch-on-warning protocol for financial collapse. The launch-on-warning doctrine is a core protocol of nuclear deterrence. It is not retaliation, it is preemption. Upon high-confidence detection of an inbound strategic strike, launch orders are executed before. The adversary's warheads can impact and destroy one's own command, control, and retaliatory capability. The entire system is built to remove human hesitation and compress the decision window to minutes. The kinetic cost of waiting for absolute confirmation is unacceptable. Analysts at CSES now model a new vector, the fog of digital war. An asymmetric cyber attack does not need to launch a missile. It only needs to blind the early warning radar. If the screens go black, the commander faces a zero-sum choice. Is the lack of signal a system error, or is it proof of a successful decapitation strike already in progress? The protocol forces the commander to assume the worst-case scenario. Out of fear of being disarmed, they must launch based on the absence of data. The adversary weaponizes uncertainty itself. This is the identical blueprint for financial warfare. A conventional adversary, assessed by bodies like the Institute for the Study of War, understands it cannot win a kinetic fight. Instead, it targets the financial system's radar, its liquidity and volatility metrics. By triggering a shock event, like the extreme dollar-yen volatility referenced by market analysts, they create a fog of digital war for the Federal Reserve. The sudden liquidity drain is the signal loss. The Fed is then forced into a launch-on-warning response. Emergency asset purchases and rate cuts, not to save the market, but out of fear that the entire system is facing a solvency event. The defensive protocol becomes the trigger for the collapse. The first shot in the solvency war will not be kinetic. It will be a calibration shot, an engineered financial event designed to measure systemic response time and panic velocity. It is a rangefinder for the main attack. The primary vector is not a missile silo. It is the dollar-yen carry trade. Financial analysis confirms a direct relationship. A sudden strengthening of the yen triggers a risk-off sentiment cascade into U.S. equities. This is not a theory. It is a documented market liability. Analysts at CSIS and RUSI assess that a conventionally pressured adversary, as detailed in recent Russian offensive campaign assessments, is incentivized to exploit this mechanism. The objective is not profit, but to force the Federal Reserve and U.S. Treasury to reveal their emergency liquidity protocols. The calibration event. Within the next 12 months, expect a severe multi-sigma flash crash in the USD-JPY currency pair during a low liquidity trading session, likely between Euro 100 and 0300 ET. It will be attributed to a fat finger error or unscheduled intervention chatter. This is the misdirection. The event is a probe. Its true purpose is to map the system's defenses before the terminal liquidity event is initiated.